Listen carefully. There is a depth in understanding the blood of Jesus that many have never tapped into. And it is the kind of depth that changes your life, your circumstances, and your very environment. When we talk about the blood of Jesus as your legal right, you must understand that this is not just religious language. This is covenantal reality. The moment Jesus shed his blood at Calvary, a legal transaction took place that forever altered the spiritual landscape of humanity. This blood is not passive. It is alive. It is active. And it is dynamic. It is a legal instrument, a judicial power in the courts of heaven that places every believer under divine protection. Every time you declare, "Blood of Jesus, arise and fight for me now," are invoking a power that has already been legally assigned to your life. You are not bargaining. You are not pleading. You are exercising a right. And this right is eternal. It does not expire. It does not diminish. And it cannot be revoked by any force of darkness. The Bible did not say that the blood is weak or optional. It said it is mighty. It is powerful. It is the very foundation for your victory. The moment the blood is applied, it shifts spiritual realities. It realigns destinies. And it calls forth angelic intervention. This is not imagination. This is revelation. Many believers live their lives unaware that they already possess a supernatural weapon, a covenantal authority that can silence enemies, break chains, and establish victories that human effort alone cannot achieve. This is why understanding the blood as your legal right is not just theological, it is practical. When you walk into a challenge, when you face opposition, you are not entering into that battlefield alone. You are entering with the authority of heaven backing you. You are entering with the assurance that a power greater than any circumstance is at work on your behalf. And the beauty of this reality is that it is not dependent on your strength. Is not dependent on your wisdom. It is dependent on the blood itself, which is eternal, which is active, which is unstoppable. Every declaration of the blood you make is like sending a legal mandate into the spiritual realm. It is like placing a divine warrant in motion that cannot be counterfeited or ignored. This is the authority that has defeated principalities, that has brought down kingdoms, that has overturned the plans of the enemy before they even reach your doorstep. To understand this is to walk in confidence, to walk in boldness, to walk in the reality that your life is not in the hands of man and your destiny is not at the mercy of circumstances. The blood has settled every case that concerns you. It has written your victory in the court of heaven, and it waits for you to declare it, to activate it, and to release its power. Now, let us move to the second truth. The blood silences every accuser. This is a principle that the enemy would want you to ignore, but it is fundamental to your spiritual life. There is a law in the spiritual realm that says the blood speaks louder than any accusation. You may have condemnation weighing on your heart, shame from past mistakes, fear from future uncertainties, or even attacks from human agents. But the blood is louder, the blood is greater, the blood is decisive. When Satan comes with accusations, when the enemy whispers lies into your ear, when doubt and fear attempt to intimidate you, there is a power that stands above all of it. Revelation 12:11 tells us that believers overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Notice carefully, the blood is not passive. It is speaking, it is active, it is acting as your advocate. It stands in your defense in the courts of heaven. It nullifies false charges, and it silences every voice that rises against you. Imagine a courtroom where evidence is presented against you, accusations are thrown, and condemnation is pronounced. Then imagine an advocate who is perfect, righteous, and unassailable, stepping in to counter every claim. That is what the blood of Jesus does in the spiritual realm. It does not negotiate, it does not compromise, it does not bargain. It declares victory, it enforces justice, and it brings release. And this is not limited to visible situations. It works invisibly, strategically, and effectively on every front of attack. Many believers suffer in their spiritual lives simply because they do not understand that the blood is their defense. They try to fight battles in human strength. They try to navigate life without applying the blood, and as a result, they remain oppressed. anxious, and defeated. But when you begin to understand that the blood speaks louder than fear, that it overrides shame, that it defeats condemnation, then your life begins to shift. You begin to walk in freedom. You begin to declare boldly without fear. You begin to understand that no accusation, no force, no scheme can withstand the power of the blood. And it is important to understand that this is not just theoretical, it is practical. Every time you meditate on the blood, every time you declare it, every time you speak it over your life, your family, your possessions, your ministry, you are allowing that blood to operate as your advocate, your defender, and your protector. The accuser will be silenced, the enemy will be frustrated, and the promises of God will begin to manifest. This is why you must never treat the blood as symbolic or secondary. It is primary. It is central. It is the very force that guarantees your victory in every situation. Understanding these two truths, that the blood is your legal right and that the blood silences every accuser, is foundational to walking in the life of victory that God has ordained for you. Without these, you may try to live in faith. You may try to pray, you may try to fight, but you will do so from a place of weakness and uncertainty. But when you grasp these realities, your life transforms. You begin to understand the supernatural alignment of heaven. You begin to walk with authority. You begin to operate in a dimension where victory is not optional, where your destiny cannot be thwarted, and where the power of God moves decisively on your behalf. Beloved, this is the invitation. Not just to believe, not just to hope, but to understand, to declare, and to activate the blood that is alive, active, and fighting for you even now. Every legal right, every heavenly defense, every spiritual courtroom is engaged in your favor the moment you recognize these truths. The depth of this revelation is immeasurable. And it is the beginning of a journey into a life that is no longer dictated by circumstance, no longer threatened by opposition, and no longer subjected to fear. The blood has already won, and your role is to understand it, declare it, and release it. The moment you do, you step into a reality where every accuser is silenced, every challenge is neutralized, and every victory is guaranteed. This is the power, the authority, and the reality of walking under the protection and the advocacy of the blood of Jesus. You must understand that the blood of Jesus is not a passive force, it is an active agent. There is a reality in the spirit that operates independently of human effort. The moment Jesus shed his blood at Calvary, a power was released into the universe, a power that moves, a power that fights, a power that intercedes on behalf of those who belong to him. When you declare, blood of Jesus, arise and fight for me now, you are not making a suggestion, you are activating a supernatural agent that is already at work. This blood does not sleep. It does not take vacations. It does not rest. It is always on assignment, strategically positioned to engage every battle you cannot see, every attack that comes against your destiny, and every plan of the enemy meant to delay, destroy, or derail your life. Many believers live their entire lives oblivious to the fact that the blood is alive. They think it is merely a ritual, a religious ceremony, a symbol of salvation. But the Bible is very clear. The blood is active, it is powerful, and it has been given to you to operate on your behalf, even before you realize the danger you are in. Imagine an invisible army stationed around your life, ready to intercept every evil desire of the adversary, ready to dismantle every plan that is contrary to your purpose. That is the reality of the blood. When you understand this, you begin to comprehend why it is written that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb. The overcoming is not in human strength. It is not in your wisdom. It is not in your strategy. It is in the active, alive, fighting power of the blood that has been legally assigned to you. Every time you meditate on it, declare it, or apply it to your life, you are engaging this active force. The moment you recognize the blood as an agent that is constantly working on your behalf, you begin to live a life of confidence, boldness, and peace, knowing that no battle is too big, no scheme too complicated, And no attack too strong for the blood that fights for you. And connected to this is the truth that spiritual warfare responds to the blood. Many believers try to engage in spiritual warfare through sheer willpower, prayer without revelation, fasting without understanding, or declarations without authority. This is why many of their efforts yield little or no result. The enemy is clever, he is strategic, and he often targets areas where believers are unaware of their authority. But the blood changes everything. It is the key that unlocks every heavenly strategy designed to fight on your behalf. When you declare the blood over your life, you are not merely speaking words, you are issuing a mandate that heaven must respond to. Angels are dispatched, principalities are overthrown, and the schemes of darkness are frustrated. The Bible makes it very clear that believers do not fight in the flesh, but in the spirit. However, what most believers fail to realize is that the spirit operates under the authority of the blood. You can pray, you can intercede, you can fast, but until you engage the blood, your spiritual warfare is incomplete. The blood is the instrument that ensures that the host of heaven is aligned with your fight, that your enemies are dislodged from their positions, and that the supernatural moves on your behalf. Imagine trying to operate a sophisticated machine without the necessary key. You can push buttons, flip switches, and hope for results, but nothing will work until the key is inserted. The blood is that key. It activates spiritual mechanisms, releases angelic assistance, and enforces the strategies of heaven that have already been ordained for your victory. When you understand this, you realize that spiritual warfare is not about aggression in the flesh, it is about operating under divine authority. Every declaration of the blood is like issuing a command to heaven that says, engage on my behalf, fight for me, arise against my enemies. And it works. The forces of darkness do not have a choice. They are bound by the authority of the blood, constrained by its power, and defeated before they even manifest. This understanding changes the way you approach life, the way you pray, the way you confront challenges, and the way you walk in faith. You no longer fight in desperation, you fight in assurance. You no longer approach battles with fear, you approach them with confidence, knowing that the same blood that redeemed you, the same blood that reconciled you to God, the same blood that defeated Satan at Calvary is actively engaged in your life. The Bible is not silent on this. It declares that the blood is effective, powerful, and decisive. It declares that the blood speaks, that it acts, and that it overcomes. Every battle that you face, whether visible or invisible, whether physical or spiritual, is subject to the authority of the blood. Every obstacle that seems insurmountable, every opposition that seems relentless, every enemy that seems cunning is already under the mandate of the blood. When you recognize this, you begin to walk in a realm of victory where defeat is not an option, delay is not permanent, and despair has no place. Many believers do not understand that spiritual warfare is not a matter of who shouts the loudest, who prays the longest, or who fasts the hardest. It is a matter of understanding authority and engaging the blood. The enemy fears the blood. Principalities tremble at the mention of the blood. Powers of darkness are neutralized when the blood is applied. You are not merely invoking words, you are releasing a force that has been designed to fight, to protect, and to win. This is why every battle in your life can be won when you properly apply the blood. The key is to recognize it as an active agent, to understand that it never sleeps, and to realize that spiritual warfare is fully responsive to it. Beloved, do not underestimate the blood. Do not trivialize its power. Do not assume that it is only symbolic or ceremonial. It is alive, it is active, it is fighting for you, and it responds to the authority of your declaration. Every prayer, every declaration, every act of faith that invokes the blood engages this active agent in ways that will surprise you, amaze you, and deliver you. When you walk in this revelation, you begin to experience victories that are not of human origin, breakthroughs that defy logic, and protection that is unexplainable by natural reasoning. The blood is your supernatural weapon. your divine advocate, your active agent, and the key to all spiritual warfare. You must understand that the blood of Jesus is not just for your protection today. It carries a generational power that reaches beyond your own life, touching the lives of your children, your household, and your legacy. The moment you begin to walk in the reality of the blood, you are not merely activating a supernatural force for yourself. You are creating a spiritual environment in which your family and generations to come can experience divine protection and favor. Many believers do not realize that the battles you fight today are not just personal, they are generational. There are schemes, there are curses, there are attacks that seek to extend beyond your own life, that try to affect your children, your descendants, your household. But the blood is greater than every generational problem, every ancestral chain, every inherited opposition. When applied, it erects a hedge of protection that cannot be broken by human wisdom, cannot be bypassed by the enemy, and cannot be nullified by circumstance. The blood speaks in the courts of heaven on behalf of your household, nullifying attacks, breaking strongholds, and declaring divine favor. This is why parents, leaders, and spiritual guardians must understand that the application of the blood is not optional. It is essential for the establishment of generational destiny. Every declaration of the blood over your home, over your children, over your work, over your ministry is a legal, spiritual engagement that ensures protection, provision, and the favor of God for generations. The blood does not work selectively, it works comprehensively. It does not operate in fragments, it operates in fullness. When you begin to understand this, you will take seriously the application of the blood in every sphere of your life. You will not wait for trouble to manifest before invoking it. You will not assume that your family is safe without activating the covenantal authority of the blood. Every generation deserves the protection that flows from the cross. Every household deserves the covering that the blood provides. And every life deserves the favor that the blood secures. And connected to this truth is the understanding that the blood is both a weapon of aggression and a shield of defense. Many believers have limited their perception of the blood to merely defensive purposes, as though it only protects, only shields, and only prevents attack. But the reality is far greater. The blood does not just defend, it conquers, it advances, it overthrows. The same blood that protects you from evil also goes ahead of you to dislodge principalities, dismantle strongholds, to remove obstacles, and to make a way where there seems to be no way. Spiritual battles are not only about stopping the enemy, they are also about taking back ground, reclaiming what has been stolen, and establishing God's will on the earth. And this is the beauty of the blood. It operates in both realms. It shields you from what you cannot see, but it also attacks on your behalf what you cannot confront. The Bible reveals that the blood overcame the enemy. It did not merely survive, it conquered, it prevailed, it secured victory. And when you begin to understand this, you will realize that the blood is a weapon of offensive power that moves with precision, authority, and force. Every time you declare it, every time you invoke it, every time you speak it over a circumstance, a situation, or a territory, the forces of darkness are not merely restrained, they are dismantled, removed, and defeated. This is why strategic invocation of the blood is critical in the life of a believer. It is not a passive recitation, it is a deliberate activation of a divine force that fights, conquers, and establishes God's dominion. Many believers limit themselves because they have underestimated the aggressive dimension of the blood. They think it is only defensive, only passive, only reactive. But the cross was not passive. The blood was not passive. Jesus did not die in defeat, but in total conquest. And the power of that blood reflects that victory in every dimension of life. When applied with understanding and faith, it becomes an unstoppable force that dismantles the works of darkness, establishes God's order, and secures victory in both seen and unseen realms. You must also understand that the blood does not operate in isolation. It works in coordination with God. As spirit, angelic hosts, and divine strategies that have been ordained since the foundation of the world. When you declare the blood, you are not merely speaking to a spiritual force. You are activating a coordinated system of divine power. Angels respond. Principalities are arrested. Strongholds collapse. Heaven moves to ensure the outcome that God has predestined for you. This is why prayer, declaration, meditation, and faith must accompany the invocation of the blood. It is not mechanical. It is relational. It is not ritualistic. It is covenantal. And when understood and applied in this way, the blood moves with precision and accuracy to both protect and advance. It shields you from harm, and it actively goes ahead of you to secure breakthroughs, victories, and divine alignment. The enemy may strategize, he may plan, he may scheme, but the blood overrides every plan. He may send delays, opposition, and obstacles, but the blood dismantles, neutralizes, and removes. This is why understanding the dual function of the blood as both a shield and a weapon is critical for every believer who desires to live a life of supernatural triumph. Beloved, it is not enough to declare the blood casually. It is not enough to speak it in routine or ritual. You must understand the depth, the authority, the covenantal power that you are invoking. The blood reaches beyond your personal protection. It secures generational blessings. It dismantles inherited curses. It overthrows oppressive powers, and it establishes God's kingdom in every realm of your life. It is active, it is alive, it fights, and it conquers. When you begin to walk in this revelation, you will no longer be surprised by victory, no longer shocked by breakthroughs, and no longer intimidated by opposition. The blood has already done the work. Your responsibility is to recognize it, declare it, and activate it in faith. Every household, every generation, every territory under your influence can experience the power of the blood when properly applied. It is comprehensive, it is authoritative, it is strategic, and it is unstoppable. The depth of this revelation is immeasurable. To truly understand the blood as both generational covering and as a weapon of aggression and defense is to enter into a spiritual reality where your life is no longer limited by circumstance, where your family is no longer vulnerable to generational attacks, and where every plan of the enemy is met with a force that cannot fail. This is the reality that transforms believers from the ordinary to the extraordinary, from weakness to supernatural strength, and from limitation to divine authority. It is a call to recognize, activate, and release the full power of the blood of Jesus in every sphere of life, knowing that it fights, it protects, it conquers, and it establishes victory in every dimension of your existence. You must understand that the blood of Jesus is not only a source of protection, not only an active agent that fights for you, but it is also a wellspring of confidence that transforms the very way you approach life. Many believers struggle with fear, insecurity, and hesitation because they have not fully grasped the authority that the blood provides. Fear thrives in ignorance. Hesitation thrives in misunderstanding, and doubt gains ground where revelation is absent. But the moment you comprehend that the blood of Jesus is alive, active, and fighting on your behalf, you step into a dimension of spiritual boldness that cannot be shaken by circumstances. Confidence is not merely an emotional state. It is a spiritual posture anchored in the reality of what the blood has accomplished. When you declare the blood over your life, you are not merely speaking words in the air. You are releasing the authority of heaven that guarantees your victory. The blood silences every fear, disarms every threat, and empowers you to walk in assurance, knowing that no matter the opposition, the outcome has already been secured by the finished work of Christ. Many believers live defeated lives, not because the enemy is stronger, but because they have not fully activated the confidence that flows from the blood. This confidence does not depend on your strength, your intellect, or your strategy. It depends entirely on the supernatural reality that the blood fights for you. Every step you take, every decision you make, every challenge you face becomes infused with divine courage, because the same power that defeated Satan at the cross is alive in your life today. When you operate in this confidence, you no longer fear opposition, you no longer live under intimidation, and you no longer wait for human solutions. You begin to operate with a boldness that comes from knowing that your defense, your victory, and your breakthrough are guaranteed. This is why it is written that we are more than conquerors. The blood is our assurance, our confidence, and our supernatural edge. Connected to this is the reality that the blood provides immediate intervention. There is a temporal urgency to the power of the blood that many believers fail to recognize. The enemy does not wait for convenient moments. He attacks with precision, with strategy, and with timing. But the blood acts with immediacy. It does not negotiate with delay. It does not require prolonged effort to become effective. The moment you invoke the blood over a situation, over a life, over a circumstance, it begins to operate instantly in the spiritual realm. Miracles, breakthroughs, protection, and divine alignments are released the moment the blood is declared. Many believers are waiting for tomorrow, waiting for better circumstances, waiting for the right timing, but the blood operates outside of human time. It is immediate, it is active, and it intervenes before you even fully understand the danger. Imagine a scenario where a life-threatening situation arises, an enemy's plot is advancing, or a storm is approaching, and in that very moment, a supernatural force engages to intercept and nullify the attack. That is the reality of the blood. Immediate intervention is not theoretical, it is practical, it is relational. It is the expression of God's covenantal promise to protect, fight, and secure victory for his children. When you declare the blood, you are engaging an instant response system that heaven has already stationed for your life. Angels are dispatched, principalities are arrested, schemes are dismantled, and circumstances are realigned, all at the moment of your declaration. This is why every believer must understand that delay, fear, and uncertainty have no hold where the blood is applied. There is an urgency, a power, and a decisiveness in the blood that guarantees intervention at the precise moment it is needed. Confidence and immediate intervention are intrinsically linked. The confidence you walk in comes from the assurance that the blood is acting instantly on your behalf. You do not need to worry about tomorrow. You do not need to strategize endlessly. You do not need to live under anxiety. The blood has already gone ahead. The blood has already engaged. And the blood has already ensured that you will overcome. This transforms the way you approach life. Ordinary believers see problems, challenges, and opposition, but those who understand the blood see divine engagement, they see victory, they see supernatural alignment. Every declaration of the blood is like sending a command to heaven, like activating a response mechanism that cannot fail. It is active, it is immediate, and it is decisive. Fear becomes irrelevant, hesitation becomes impossible, and doubt is silenced because you know that the blood is working for you at the very moment it is called upon. Many believers are living defeated lives because they have not fully recognized the immediacy of the blood. They pray and wait, they intercede and delay, they strategize and hope, but the blood operates in real time, immediately responding to every invocation. This is why revelation of the blood's immediate intervention is critical. When you understand that the blood acts instantly, you begin to live without anxiety, without delay, and without fear. You begin to operate in a realm where every attack is neutralized before it manifests, where every obstacle is dismantled before it obstructs, and where every enemy is disarmed before it can threaten your destiny. This is a dimension of spiritual life that is only accessed through revelation, understanding, and active declaration of the blood. Beloved, it is not enough to know that the blood exists. You must understand its function. You must understand that confidence flows from it, that boldness is anchored in it, that fear is disarmed by it. and that its intervention is immediate. Every challenge, every opposition, every circumstance is subject to the authority of the blood. And the moment you activate it, everything shifts in your favor. There is no delay. There is no hesitation. There is no weakness. There is only divine power, divine authority, and divine action. This is why the believer who walks in confidence and invokes the blood experiences life differently. They move with certainty, they declare with authority, and they live with assurance because the supernatural has been activated in real time for their benefit. Understanding these two truths, that the blood provides unshakable confidence and guarantee. Immediate intervention transforms your spiritual life, your mindset, and your daily walk. You no longer live by human reasoning. You no longer depend on natural strength. You no longer operate in fear of the unknown. You operate in a supernatural reality where victory is certain, where protection is continuous, and where every battle is already decided. The blood is alive, it is active, it is powerful, and it is responding at the very moment you declare it. It is your confidence, your shield, and your immediate source of divine intervention. And to fully understand and operate in this reality is to step into a life of unshakable victory. Divine alignment and supernatural breakthrough. You must understand that the blood of Jesus is not limited in its power. It is a force that can break strongholds in your life. Every believer faces areas of bondage, oppression, and limitations, some visible, some hidden, some inherited, some self-imposed. Strongholds can manifest as persistent sin, recurring failures, cycles of fear, sickness, poverty, or even relational oppression. Many believers have struggled for years, fighting battles in their own strength, only to see the same patterns repeat. But the blood of Jesus is not bound by human limitation. It is a supernatural power that was shed to dismantle every form of bondage, to shatter every chain, and to set the captives free. This is why understanding the blood as a stronghold breaker is essential. You are not merely invoking words when you declare, "Blood of Jesus, arise and fight for me now." You are releasing a divine power that attacks the very root of every oppression, exposes every hidden agenda of the enemy, and dislodges every spiritual grip that seeks to dominate your life. The blood operates at the root level. It does not merely mask problems, it removes the causes. It is surgical in its precision, targeting every stronghold with authority and power. Many believers fail to experience freedom because they have not recognized the blood as a weapon of liberation. They pray superficially, they declare mechanically, and they hope for change without understanding the depth of what the blood can do. But the blood is not passive, it is active, aggressive, and decisive. It has the authority to break the chains that have held you captive, and it will do so when properly invoked. Every pattern of failure, every cycle of oppression, every habit that has resisted human effort is subject to the power of the blood. It is comprehensive, it is decisive, and it is unstoppable. The moment you understand this, your approach to life changes. You no longer live under defeat. You no longer accept limitation. You no longer tolerate oppression. The blood becomes your weapon of breakthrough, your sword of deliverance, and your key to freedom. And beyond breaking strongholds, the blood also commands the supernatural. This is a reality that many believers have not fully grasped. The supernatural is not a distant concept. It is not reserved for a select few. It is the birthright of every child of God. The blood of Jesus is the key that releases the supernatural into your life. When you speak it, declare it, and apply it, you are operating in the language of heaven. Mountains move, storms cease, sicknesses flee, favor is released, and miracles manifest. The blood does not negotiate with natural limitations. It overrides them. Every situation that seems impossible is subject to the authority of the blood. When you understand that the blood commands the supernatural, you recognize that you are not merely a participant in life. You are a ruler, a spiritual authority, a divine representative with power to enforce God's will on the earth. The blood releases miracles that defy human understanding, opens doors that have been closed for years, brings restoration where loss has occurred, and reverses circumstances that seemed permanent. Many believers limit themselves because they have not embraced this truth. They live within the confines of natural reasoning. They rely on human efforts and they wait for chance. But the blood operates beyond chance, beyond natural processes, and beyond human understanding. When invoked, it brings forth manifestations of God's power in ways that are immediate, decisive, and undeniable. The power of the blood to command the supernatural is also linked to faith. Faith is the mechanism through which the blood is activated. Without faith, the declaration of the blood is empty. With faith, it becomes a catalyst for divine action. This is why every believer must not only understand the authority of the blood, but also cultivate a deep, unwavering faith in its efficacy. Every time you confront sickness, every time you face financial impossibility, every time you encounter relational chaos, the blood is your instrument of authority. When properly applied, it triggers supernatural intervention, causes the invisible to become visible, and ensures that God's promises manifest in your life. The blood is the key, faith is the mechanism, and God's power is the effect. Together, they create a reality in which nothing is impossible, nothing is unattainable, and nothing can stand against you. Many believers have never experienced the fullness of the supernatural because they have not understood the dual function of the blood. It breaks strongholds and it enforces divine authority. The blood does not merely react to circumstances, it dictates the outcome. It does not wait for problems to resolve naturally. It imposes divine order and alignment. It does not negotiate with impossibility, it overrides it. This is why the blood must be central to every aspect of the believer's life. It is not supplementary, it is primary. It is not symbolic, it is operational. When you walk in this revelation, every stronghold in your life is confronted. Every obstacle is dismantled. And every promise of God becomes accessible. You no longer live under limitation, fear, or oppression because the blood commands the supernatural to intervene on your behalf. Beloved, the understanding of these truths transforms the way you pray, the way you declare, the way you engage in spiritual warfare, and the way you live your life daily. The blood is your instrument of deliverance, your key to breakthrough, and your authority over every power that seeks to oppose you. Stronghold collapse before it. Curses are nullified, oppression is destroyed, and miracles manifest. The supernatural responds immediately to it. Circumstances are realigned, and divine favor flows freely. To operate without recognizing the full power of the blood is to live under limitation and to function below your God-given authority. But to understand it, declare it, and activate it is to step into the fullness of victory. Supernatural favor and divine authority that God intended for you from the beginning. Every area of your life, spiritual, physical, relational, financial, and generational, is subject to the power of the blood when properly invoked. There is no enemy, no circumstance, and no impossibility that can withstand its force. It is alive, it is active, it is decisive, and it is unstoppable. When you fully grasp the blood as the breaker of strongholds and the enforcer of the supernatural, you enter into a dimension of spiritual life that is transformative, liberating, and empowering. You begin to walk in freedom, to speak with authority, to act with boldness, and to live with confidence. Every area that has resisted human effort is brought under divine control. Every oppression is confronted and dismantled. Every impossible situation is made possible. This is the power, the authority, and the reality of walking under the blood of Jesus. A blood that fights for you, breaks strongholds, and commands the supernatural in your life.